If you've ever applied to college, likely the first question you were asked is what is your ACT or SAT score, right? And if you did poorly on or didn't take one of these tests, you can forget about being accepted to college. Ever since we entered school, we've been forced to take various standardized tests. I feel standardized testing wrongly determines the futures and the quality of education of far too many students, and it needs to end. I've included some statistics as well. As you can see, 67% of parents say there is too much emphasis on testing, and only 14% say that it's important in measuring school effectiveness. And out of the parents surveyed, 66% say test scores oppose using test scores to evaluate teacher performance. As a current senior in high school, I have definitely had my fair share of standardized tests over the years and have seen firsthand the negative effects they have, and I would like to share these with more people and encourage you to take a stand against standardized testing. First, I will share some of the problems that standardized testing has and how it negatively impacts students. And then I will talk about the causes of why standardized testing has been around for as long as it has. Lastly, I will provide some solutions and possible alternatives for standardized tests. One of the biggest problems I find with standardized testing is that a single test could determine a student's entire future. If you don't do well on these tests, you will likely be denied acceptance into many colleges, no matter how intelligent you are. In addition, most standardized tests are timed, and many students perform poorly under pressure. When you combine the high-stakes test grade itself with the pressure of a time constraint, it causes many students anxiety and to not perform to the best of their abilities. When a student takes one of these tests, they are automatically labeled by their score. We take the number we are given and go where we can with it. For some, that's a good college and a high-paying job, and for others, it's straight to a low-paying job with no further education. Because we have so many of these standardized tests to worry about, a lot of classroom learning is less about learning and more about how to pass a test. Students are very aware of what is at stake, and they will do almost anything to help them pass. This could include taking prescription drugs that aren't prescribed to them, or cheating, which is illegal in most places. Not only could this type of testing cause students behavioral issues, but the quality of education goes down. According to ASCD.org, many classrooms have adopted what is known as teaching to the test, meaning students are taught what they need to know to pass the test and not what they need to know to have a knowledge of the subject. Besides the fact that these tests put an enormous pressure on students, they don't even always accurately measure a student's intelligence. Just because someone isn't exactly book smart doesn't mean they aren't intelligent, smart, or deserving of a higher education. These are only a few problems that we face with standardized tests. Next, I would like to talk about some of the causes of why standardized testing has been around for so long. Many people argue that standardized testing is good because it's easy to compare students' achievements. While this might actually be an effective way to measure a specific student's progress, that's not the case for everyone. And oftentimes, when students take these tests, they guess on many of the questions, so when it comes time to take another test and compare numbers, it's mainly based on your guessing abilities. Another argument for standardized testing is that they're objective. Yes, this does eliminate any bias a teacher might have towards a student, but it usually doesn't allow room for creativity or elaboration. You're either right or you're wrong. Because standardized tests are objective, this does not take into account the cultural areas in which students live and the different levels of education that come from these areas. Lastly, I will provide solutions and possible alternatives to standardized tests. Some alternatives that I think would be effective are letting students choose the type of test they take and the use of portfolio-based assessments. If students were given an option of a few different types of tests and got to choose based on how they learn, I think these tests would be more effective. Students have different ways of thinking. These can include more of a hands-on approach, visually, or some prefer to simply read and answer a question. Another viable alternative is what is known as a portfolio-based assessment. According to rethinkingschools.org, a portfolio-based assessment is a folder of work in which your teachers gather work that showcases the students' talents, strengths, and weaknesses. These alternatives to standardized testing could make students worry less, and hopefully provide them with tools to a more promising future. Finally, I would like to reiterate that standardized testing should end, and I encourage you to take a closer look at the policies in which schools have adopted. I have explained to you some of the problems that students face with standardized testing, and I've also shared some of the causes of why we are still taking standardized tests. And finally, I've provided some alternatives. Now that you know some of the major issues with standardized testing, I hope you will take a closer look at how it is negatively affecting so